Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, presented by Geico of Mobile, the first podcast to bring you the local inshore, offshore, and onshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I am Captain Patric Garmeson, joined with Butch Theory. How about it, buddy? What's going on, man?
Oh,
it's been
man,
a while.
It has been a while. You and I haven't co-hosted together in quite some time. We didn't even talk to you last week, so it definitely has been a while.
Yeah, man.
You been catching them?
Been all right. I hadn't been out there as much as I'd like to. I had a pretty thick week of fishing last week, and then the weekend wind started blowing on Sunday. And so anyway, I slid out there for a little bit Monday, and we'll talk a bit about that once we get into the inshore side of things. But what about you? What you been up to?
Nice, man. Just trying not to go crazy, honestly. Luckily, my real job has been super duper busy. We have not slacked off at all due to this deal, but just trying to get some house projects done and just trying to stay busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Just pass the time a little bit. I get it on what you're doing, because Autumn's been working from home and she's been just wide open, having to just field calls and has all kind of stuff going on. So I would say anybody that's having to be locked in and working from home, y'all hang with it, and we're going to get through this, right?
Hang in there. That's right. Oh, yeah, we don't have a choice, man. We've been super duper busy, Joe and I, over at Great Days Outdoors. I know we have a lot of listeners over in the Pensacola, kind of Northwest Florida, Panama City region that listen to this podcast. And we actually recently launched and we have a lot of freshwater fishermen in Alabama that are landlocked that also listen to this podcast. So we have something new for those listeners, man. So we are pleased to announce that we now have the Northwest Florida Fishing Report. It's been published on iTunes and is ready to be listened to. And the Alabama Freshwater Fishing Report as well. Those are ready to be listened to, man. I think they've recorded 3 or 4 shows now, and look forward to that, man. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a fun ride.
Any special guests coming up on any of those shows, or?
I'm sure there'll be many more coming up. I think the latest Alabama Freshwater Fishing Report, old G-Man, Mr. Gerald Swindle was over there, and it kind of started out, man, those co-hosts over there, it's going to be a cool show. They're cool guys. It started out as just a regular show, and they kind of got him on to give a fishing report, and they ended up just talking about G-Man's life for 40 minutes. So it really turned out to be a cool show. Yeah, it ended up just being a G-Man special, so that's cool.
Man, he is an absolute blast to listen to, so that'll be entertaining to check out. I'll be ready to check that one out as soon as I can.
Yep. It ended up being pretty inspirational, man. It sounds like, dude, he made it, and he deserved it whenever he made it. You know what I mean?
Yep. I've heard a little bit of his backstory, and it's pretty amazing. I think at one point he said he was living out of his truck and working odd jobs for gas money and tournament entry fees, and they made it. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Love to hear stuff like that, man.
Well, man, enough about freshwater in the Northwest. Let's focus on the Mobile Bay area. Who we got coming on giving us some reports today?
Well, man, we checked with our network, and as you know, like you just said, it's been blowing its tail off. So offshore, it's been super duper rough. None of our guys could get out and do much. So we're going to talk with Angelo DePaola, man. I know cobias are starting to run, and those ling are starting to show up, and we're just going to kind of talk cobia, man, talk sight fishing, and just kind of see what Angelo's got to say.
Okay, and I got the inshore stuff coming on, and who we got bringing the kayak and the inshore.
That's right. Yeah, we got Scott Kennedy. Scott Kennedy will give us the lowdown on what's going on over there near shore and over there Orange Beach. I don't know what he's been up to. We got a good show, man. Let's head on down to Angelo and see what's going on and get started.
All right, buddy. Let's do it. So what's up, Angelo?
Oh, man, sitting here enjoying a beautiful spring day, a little bit more temperate than what we have been.
Thank
beautiful
goodness.
Day, nevertheless.
It is beautiful. A little windy here, but, man, it's been nice to be outside. I wish that I wasn't in the office all day.
Yeah, it's definitely blowing a little today.
Yeah. Tell us a tuna story, man. What you been hearing? What's been going on?
Man, talking to a lot of guys. Obviously, the East lump's been getting the majority of the press, but, man, there's a lot of fish being caught at the rigs right now. Fish at Horn. Had some buddies that went out a few days ago and fished under Horse, Nikika, all that stuff to the west of those rigs. Said you couldn't put it didn't matter what you put in the water, whether it was a ballyhoo, whether it was 15-inch black bart, like those more 30 and 50 pound tunas, they were literally just getting tired of catching them. So which is weird because last year, up until October, I think we'd caught 3 all year off our boat.
Yeah.
To go from almost none to chewing the props off the boat, who knows why that is.
Definitely seems like something happened, like you say, about October of last year. And if you could get out there, you were in some tuna, man, and that really hasn't let up yet. I think that's a great sign.
And a lot of big ones. I mean, I don't know if it's, sometimes this stuff's cyclical. I'm not sure if one year we get the way the Gulf Stream pushes the loop current, if we get a bigger pushy fish, warm weather. I don't know. There's just more bait. I'm not sure if there's more bait, but there's definitely more fish in our localized waters. And just got an email a few minutes ago that as of tomorrow, the bluefin will have already met the bluefin quota for the Gulf for the year.
That's crazy.
I know they caught 3 or 4 big fish off of Texas last week.
Mm-hmm. So, I saw those as well. I don't know, man. As far as the tuna goes, you might be onto something with that loop current. I wonder if it has anything to do with us not really having a winter. I mean, we really didn't have any cold temperatures to speak of whatsoever. Who knows?
I know. What, a couple of days where you could burn some wood in the fireplace. And I think today and tomorrow would be, usually we get a little bit more cooler weathers in spring. I mean, you get a little snap, a few more of these, but I hadn't had that this spring.
Angelo, a lot of times on the inshore things, I'm always thinking about, like, whenever we're seeing a fish population just really kicking butt, it seems to have a lot to do with water quality. Are the guys seeing cleaner water or maybe more nutrient-rich water or anything like that, like something that might be a little bit different?
I don't know how that affects out there. I mean, you've got so much water. You got a lot bigger portion of water that can get diluted out.
True.
Your guess would be as good as mine.
I was hoping to get Thomas Hilton on the show today. He'd have been a good resource for that. Maybe we can have him on soon and he can educate us on anything that he's seeing on that end. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some historical data people could pull and take a look. I mean, but like this stuff happens all the time. How many years have we had it where you weren't catching any dolphin and then the next year you go out there and you can't hardly fish for anything else?
Right.
Because they're eating the props off your boat. I don't know why that is. Some of this I just think is cyclical, and I'm not sure if we'll ever understand it.
And just embrace it when it's good, right?
That's right. Get some sashimi while you can.
Yeah. But what's today? April 15th, I think?
Yeah.
Typically this time of year, a lot of the guys that are fishing offshore, cobia fishing or ling fishing or lemon fish, depending on what part of the Gulf of Mexico you call home. Mm-hmm. And April 15th is typically the apex of cobia fishing around this part of the world. Mm-hmm. Like every old timer will tell you about this time of year. I don't know how that's shaking out this year so much because also once the dogwoods start blooming and all that started blooming really soon this year, we started seeing fish, coming in through a couple of weeks ago. Now those, even on this north wind, the beach is probably pretty slick today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually texting Kyle Smith, Skin Deep Sport Fishing, a minute ago, and he was up in the tower. He said he was freezing. He didn't bring any long pants.
Oh. He's paying a price for him today.
That tower on that Skin Deep's about 600 feet tall, so I'm sure he is up there in the nosebleeds, cold.
Oh, yeah.
Let's transition to that a little bit, man. You want to talk about cobia? What have you been seeing any of that? I know the guys are, like you say, it's getting cranked up. It seems I've been seeing a few come in on social media and whatnot, but it seems a little late. Like you say, this should be the peak, but it seems like it's just getting started. I could be wrong.
I mean, I'm not sure if the offshore fishing's been so good that there's been a lot of guys doing that. And the cobia fishing the past few years have been kind of slow. So there's some people starting to go out there. And I think seeing more than what I had seen in the past. And, thing is, what we really need is some good southeast wind. And that's when you start seeing these big pushes of fish coming through our beaches.
True.
Probably not the best day for them, but if you ain't got anything better to do, which a lot of people don't,
right,
it's pretty cheap fishing.
Yeah, that's true, man. Well, I haven't done a whole lot of, since that's kind of applicable right now, let's go into that a little bit. I haven't done a whole lot of big tower boat cobia fishing. Honestly, I did a little bit on the Lady Ann, but Dad got too bored with that pretty quickly, so we abandoned that pretty quick. A couple of times I did it with him. It's a lot of riding and looking.
It is a lot of riding and looking. And if you grew up where we grew up, you just went to oil rig.
It wasn't our thing, right. Right. It wasn't our
Yeah.
thing. We didn't have the water really to look for it. So over there with you guys, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, I mean, do you just pick up and come out of the pass and head one way or the other, or what kind of dictates that? Just walk us through a kind of a day.
Well, a lot of what dictates it is where the sun. I mean, ultimately what's nice is to come out of the pass and start going east. But if you go in the morning, you're going to have the sun in your eyes. So you're really going to be looking back at the fish and turning around to go cast on them. So a lot of times what people will do is they'll run to the east and fish back to the west. Or you can, if we got clear water to the west, you just come out
that way.
Pretty pass and head right to the west, and then fish it, work it back to the east as the sun gets a little bit higher. What you're looking for is bars and stuff to kind of cause the fish to pop up. I can tell you, I don't know how many fish we've caught just right out of the pass, right on that bar. It's a good place to find them. If there's not too much boat traffic there. And if you had ever done it, it's one of those things you can take off at 2 or 3 in the afternoon and get you a couple hours of fishing in and really work to the east really well. And there's a few little tricks to it, and heck, might as well give some people a little bit of insight into it. So one of the things is with the eels, if you put them in a bucket with a little bit of ice, this will cool them down and keep them from wiggling so much. You already want to have them on the hook. I'm sure you can get these everywhere. There's these little kind of like line clips, and you can just zip tie them to the top of your bucket, and you kind of clip your line into it. And this keeps the line from going in the bucket, keeps the eel from tangling everything up. And then when you have the ice in the bucket, it cools them down, but when they hit the water, that water's a little bit warmer, so they get the shaking and everything like a Woodstock hippie. And that's really what kind of gets the fish fired up and wanting to eat them. But it's always a good idea. Bring some finfish, some mullets, some
jigs, I like some big jigs.
tails, pinfish, jigs, definitely. When they're pushing through, you got to think, by the time they're getting over to us, they've gone through Panama City, Destin, Fort Walton, all that area. And some of those fish have been cast on a lot. So if you have a little something different than what they're used to seeing, especially on some fish, it's going to make all the difference in the world.
For sure.
The other thing is,
I was just going to go ahead and I guess if you want to finish up where you were going, but I'm curious on the rigging, on just say a good rod and reel, line, leader, hook setup.
All right. Well, look, I'll get into like some of the boat maneuvering, and then we'll go into like kind of the tackle setup. Because a lot of times, if you're going east and the fish are migrating west, you'll see them and you're going to pass them up, right? So you need to turn around and go get on them.
Yep.
What you want to do is not put one motor in gear and one in reverse to make the quick spin, because that throws a slightly different vibration into the water and those fish feel it. And a lot of times they'll go down. So you just, both motors in gear, make a quick turn. And then if they do go down and you can't see them, what you'll notice is a lot of times on certain days, almost all the fish will be in the same line. They're kind of traveling. I don't know why they do this, but they're kind of traveling the same line. So they go down, kind of putt around there in that same distance off the beach. Good chance you're going to run into that fish again. But on tackle setup, I mean, everybody has their go-to. I like a fairly small circle hook, 5.0, 6.0. You don't need anything real big. Here, 7.0, big as you need. 50-pound fluorocarbon leader, a little bit of swivel, and 30-pound outfit is basically all you need, because at the end of the day, there's no structure there for them to break you off in.
Right.
You're in a boat. They're not going to go too deep and spool you. You should be able to catch up to the fish. Now, with that being said, 30-pound outfit, you come across the right one, you could be sitting there for an hour fighting them.
You're going to have your hands full for a little while.
A buddy of mine
right.
yesterday fought one for, I think, about an hour and a half and eventually broke it off.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Did he say how big? Any idea how big it was? Did he give out any estimates?
He just said it was the biggest one he'd ever seen, and they caught one that was 45 pounds. So it's significantly bigger than that one.
Angelo, tell me this now. So a lot of the guys I know love the eels, and like you said, you gave us that nice tip about keeping them on the ice. What if fish refuses the eel? What do you feel like? What's a good follow-up? What's your buddy next to you need to be throwing? Do you need to throw a croaker or a jig, or what do you think there?
I mean, typically you've got two guys with eels, or a guy with an eel and a guy with a jig. Like, we're pretty much, eel's going to go out first. If it doesn't hit that, we'll buzz a jig or something by him real quick. And if he doesn't hit that, hopefully that's enough time to put like a croaker or a pinfish or something else on the hook. I mean, anything. It can be a blue crab, just something they may not have seen, or giant shrimp. If you're able to get big giant live shrimp, just something that they might not have seen yet.
Right.
Might turn them on.
You may have to get creative on that. Just throw whatever you got.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple where there's nothing inside the boat that I didn't throw outside the boat trying to catch them.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I like a gotcha plug, honestly, on a smaller rod and reel. They're real sporadic. Yeah. They move real fast, and just something, that little bitty bait may be what they're dialed in on that day.
Yeah, that's true. Nice. Something shiny and something a little different, like you say.
Oh, yeah.
All right, man. We got to get that offshore tip from you like we always do. And this week's offshore tip is brought to us by KillerDock. Today, we want to talk about a common form of dock dysfunction, skinny dock. Narrow finger piers, catwalks around boat slips, even bulkheads. If you've got a skinny dock and you know it and you're not happy about it, but what can you do? Nothing until now. KillerDock fish cleaning stations are offset and can enhance your skinny dock so that you can have the fish cleaning station you've always dreamed of. If you're suffering from skinny dock, check out the full line of all natural dock enhancing fish cleaning stations at KillerDock.com. What you think for a tip this week, bud?
Man, if you're out there cobia fishing this week, or into the spring, obviously we're looking for the fish, but the other thing we're looking for, there's actually several things. Sea turtles. I mean, there's a good chance you're going to see them on sea turtles. They're going to start pushing through. The rays, there's always a good chance of seeing them on the rays. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of fads out there this year, and they're a little bit shallower than normal just because a lot of people, with the lack of fishing pressure, I think, have moved them inshore. So a lot of times that could be anything from a tarp to just
pallet,
sort of
pretty much anything, really.
Pallet or something. A lot of times, if you'll see them, you can go mark them, go fish them multiple times throughout the spring.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tip, man. I'm always looking for like you say, big pods of rays or just those big rays in general, and also sea turtles. I've caught them on all those things.
Oh yeah.
Any new listings over there? What's going on with the coastal connection, man? You want to give us a real estate update?
Man, we'll give a quick real estate update. Look, it's COVID-19, and I ain't gonna lie, it's a little slower than normal. I mean, we did put one under contract today, and we closed one today, so there's still properties moving. Contrary to probably a lot of belief, we're not really seeing downward pressure on pricing just yet. I couldn't give any, but I can't predict the future on it. Thing comes to an end sooner than later. The hope is we go back to business as normal, but if it drags out all summer, I don't think that's going to be the case. Yeah, I think we would see some downward pressure, but we still have a handful of really nice waterfront listings. There are some people out here shopping, taking advantage of interest rates right now. If anybody's out there looking, you get at me through Facebook. Look me up at the Coastal Connection.
Awesome, buddy. We appreciate the report, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, Angelo.
All right, man. Y'all have a good one.
Man, I don't really know what's making those tuna bite or stick around or be more prominent out there than they have the last few summers and winters, but I hope they stick around, man. That's my jam. I hope that continues on that pattern for sure.
It's interesting to me that they're talking about over there on the lumps that they're all like 100 to even 200 and over 200
giants,
pounders.
Man. Yeah.
And then you've got this batch of like technically schoolie sized tunas. Sounds like if I were wanting to go offshore, like I would want to have me about 2 or 3 of those schoolie sized tunas to bring back to the dock.
Yeah. Probably a lot easier to acquire physically as well.
Yeah, I was listening to the report last week, and Dustin was talking about being able to catch them in like 5 or 10 minutes versus 3 hours. And yeah, that sounds way more appealing to bring some tuna to the dock in like 10 minutes.
Especially with my 80-year-old man back. Put me down for the count. Well, man, I know that you have been on the fish as always. We had Captain Richard on last week co-hosting with me, and we interviewed Captain Bobby. He's been finding some stuff too. I figure we just go ahead and get you to do the inshore report this week. What you think?
Man, I'm certainly ready to do it. Man, I guess I'll step back a little bit. I feel like the sheephead bite is probably going to be done by the time this wind stops blowing. There's probably going to still be a few fish hanging out there on the rigs out in the Gulf. I really feel like that's going to be about over. Those fish are going to start dispersing, and the fish that are going to be left out there are going to be post-spawn fish. They're going to be skinny. You're not going to really see any of these big giant fish anymore. But on the inshore side of things, we have spent a little bit of time on the north side of Mississippi Sound targeting speckled trout and redfish. Man, really throwing 2 things. We've been throwing topwater early and throwing popping corks after that, and it's been working out.
Still artificial under the popping cork as much as you can?
Yeah. Dude, I didn't even touch a shrimp. Didn't even
Nice.
touch shrimp. Just throwing that baby voodoo shrimp. If you feel like you're around redfish, throw that little bit of fish bite on there. If you feel like you're around trout, don't even worry about the fish bite because they're strictly going on that shrimp-shaped bait.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things while I was in that area for those couple of days, we were catching speckled trout, redfish, the occasional croaker, and the occasional sweet trout, but there were like no catfish or anything other bycatch. So it was a really, really clean bite. There was hundreds of little fish, little specks. I mean, anything from like 7 to 10 inch long little specks all the way up to catch and keeper size, all the way up to, even overslot fish that we were catching on topwater baits.
That's great.
It was fun and a lot of bird activity. So, I mean, there was a lot of times where I'm going from one spot to the next and see a seagull swoop down. I stop the boat, get upwind of it, up current of it, and down to where that bird was. And lo and behold, there's 30 or 40 bites all in one spot. A lot of action down there.
Other than the bird action, anything in particular you're trying to hone in on right now as far as numbers, grass, shell bottom, anything along those lines?
A lot of the oyster farms have been doing well down there in Portersville and Grand Bay. Most everything has been oyster related for me. But then at one point, the wind started blowing pretty hard and we slid up on some of the bayous and just to kind of get out of the wind, and the redfish were in there. So, I mean, there's a lot of options on the north side of the Mississippi Sound right now. Then
Where else you been?
I've been on the eastern shore. We've done some dock fishing over there. We had an east wind really blowing strong and stuck in there tight to the docks, and we caught some nice fish and we caught some keeper size fish, mostly reds, but it really wasn't like on fire like I was hoping to find. I mean, the water looked pretty good over there. There was bait around, but it was like every time I was about ready to do something different, we'd catch another fish, and it might be a 23 or 25 inch redfish. So it's like, man, that's a nice fish.
Just enough bite to string you along.
Exactly. And I guess the name of the game is that we stuck with it and we caught fish, and it could be productive. It wasn't quite as productive as I would have liked, but it was still doable. We still caught some fish. And then
Water quality.
The water quality looked good. I mean, it's not real salty, but the water's got a little bit of green tint to it, probably about 18 inches worth of visibility, which is plenty as far as I'm concerned. You don't have to really be in a full stealth mode. Your tackle can be a little bit more cumbersome and still catch fish. But the popping cork, shrimp imitation, or live shrimp was definitely the game for me over there. I fished up in the Delta as well, and the redfish bite was good up there. And here's something that I want to talk about that I found was a real interesting find. As I mentioned, in the south end of the bay, in the Mississippi Sound, we weren't catching really many of any kind of bycatch. The bycatch is all up north. I mean, it's crazy amount of hardheads and croakers that are up north right now. Despite all the river runoff and the floods and all this stuff, the dang hardheads are several miles up into the Delta. Croakers are everywhere. So there's a lot more bycatch, but there still are some trout and some really nice redfish being caught in the lower Delta and the Mobile River and even out on the flats and stuff. So as of today of this report, there's a lot of options out there. Unfortunately, this rain that we just had over the weekend has got Tom Bigby and the Alabama, both river systems going on a rise. And I would expect that water quality from those river rises, it's gonna start going downhill every single day. It looks like the Tom Bigby is supposed to crest maybe around Sunday or Monday, hopefully. And then it takes about, once you see a crest at Tom Bigby, once you see it at Coffeyville, about 2 days after that, you're going to see the crest at Berry. And then about a day or two after that is when you're going to start seeing your water quality improve.
Dang.
So I would say we're probably about 10 days away from seeing that water starting to flush back out of here. But until then, it's gonna progressively get a little worse. It's gonna put some strain on what the bay looks like. And when things like this happen for me, I really, really hone in on my leeward shoreline. So
that was my next question is, how's that going to change your game plan for the weekend?
man, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at what the wind's doing. Ideally, if it's blowing out of the east or blowing out of the west, you get an entire shoreline of the bay that'll clean up for you, and you get a lot more range. Whereas if it's a north wind or a south wind, you have just so much more limited areas to be able to find clean water. But, a north wind will give you the entire northern shore of Mississippi Sound to be able to fish. Or if it's not, if it's not 30 miles an hour out of the north, you can slide around and get on the Gulf side of Dolphin Island and Gulf Shores. And Chris was it last week? Chris was talking about the hammering the Pompano on the Gulf Beach. That's certainly still within question there on a north wind. And then there's definitely some trout showing up on the beaches as well. So, there are some good north wind options. And then on the south wind, the north shore of Fort Morgan Peninsula and north shore of Dolphin Island, I'll give you some options. And that's exactly how I'm going to play it. I'm just going to go to the leeward shorelines, and those areas are going to clean up the fastest and give me the best shot at giving a good presentation to the fish.
Awesome, man. That's a great report. It sounds like just got to play off your conditions. You got to see what you're looking at and then go with it. I haven't looked at the tide or anything. The moon's getting smaller, right? It was pretty big into last week.
Yep, we're waning right now. And the tides will still be pretty big, I think, all the way into the weekend. And, that'll help with pulling nice green water in here and good salty water. But the rivers kind of dilute any of that coming in. But, it kind of goes over, the salt will come in on bottom, the fresh water will slide out on top. And, hopefully this will push out pretty quick and we don't have to sit there and look at it for 3 or 4 weeks like we did this last time it got high on us.
No doubt.
But it was really, really encouraging to see the amount of speckled trout we were able to catch up on the causeway, the redfish that we're catching way up in the Delta. And there were options as of right now. And I think a lot of that stuff will kind of push deeper and won't be as accessible while the water gets dirty. But as soon as you see Berry crest in a day or two, once it starts coming down, the water almost immediately, every day it'll start cleaning up. So if you keep an eye on those river gauges, you can make decisions on the river gauges and then also on your predominant wind condition or wind direction, and help you make some decisions on where to go when you're ready to set sail and steam out there and look for something.
Awesome. Yep. Sounds like something's happening. Even with a little bit dirtier water quality, if you get a decent wind in one direction or the other, you can tuck in somewhere and make something happen this weekend. I would hope so.
I would think so.
All right, man. You got the Hey Cap question this week. This week's Hey Cap sponsor is Foster Contracting. The recent thunderstorms that have been producing wind damage in the area may have damaged your home's roof. The certified roofing pros at Foster Contracting offer free roof inspections, and if your roof has received damage, most homeowners will have little or no cost out of pocket when going through your insurance. If you're looking for quality construction with a dependable, licensed, and certified fortified roofing professional, give the Fortified Roofing Pros a call at 251-973-9999. They're a family-owned business that is big enough to get the job done, but small enough to care. Remember to support the local businesses that make your local podcast possible, and check them out at fortifiedroofingpros.com. All right, man. This week's Hey Cap comes from Chris Hinton. Chris Hinton asks, Hey Cap, how does the water temperature affect the speckled trout and where they move and how they feed? Man,
that's a good question. I get this type of question often from our local anglers about try to better understand the speckled trout migration. And there's a lot of stuff out there that we're still trying to put together, and hopefully like the angler tagging program with the CCA is going to start helping some of that stuff put together. But in general, speckled trout are going to move inshore into the rivers, into the creeks, into the fall as water temperatures start to decline and the days start getting shorter. And we're now in where the days are getting longer, the water's getting warmer. And I see in my experience, once that water stays over about 70 degrees, most of your mature size speckled trout they're going to have left the smaller tributary rivers like Fowl River, Dog River, Magnolia, Fish River, Bon Secour. Most of those mature size speckled trout are going to have moved out and are moving towards saltier water. Notice I didn't mention Mobile River and Theodore Canal because those areas are really deep and are almost always going to have some amount of salt water in there. So there's going to be some fish that just stick it out and wait, and they're, I guess they maybe spawn 20 or 30 feet deep if the water doesn't get right, or they just, or their bodies don't let them spawn because the salt salinity isn't there. So basically what you're going to see is once that water is over 70 degrees, most of all of your fish are going to be out of the estuary type rivers and into the open waters and really moving towards saltier water. That doesn't necessarily mean every speckled trout is going to be at Dolphin Island and Fort Morgan, but there's going to be a lot more fish moved towards those areas because those are going to be the higher salinity areas after, like a spring like we had and a late winter like we had, where the salinity is pretty low. But based on what I've seen just this past week, there's not a tremendous amount of salinity on the eastern shore, but there are some speckled trout. I caught some nice specks in the middle of the bay this week as well. I actually caught a couple Monday, I think it was Monday, on slick lures, and they were just big, fat, just ready to spawn fish that, I just took them off the hook, tagged them and let them go. But they're, my thought there is that these things are actually, maybe they were in water that's not quite salty enough for them to spawn. So they're actually, their roe is going to stay, they're going to hold the roe a little bit longer until that salinity is right. And it might require them to move, and that's just a theory on that. But anyway, and then as far as how do they feed, everything I've always seen is the water gets warmer in the spring, they feed more and more on finfish, but really just take advantage of whatever's available, shrimp and whatnot. And we're just now starting to see enough shrimp out there to give you some sign as to fish feeding there. But I really key in on my mullet and my pogies and stuff like that this time of year. And then once you start swinging back into the fall, you're going to, as the water starts cooling back down, they're going to be feeding heavy, getting ready for the winter. So, you're moving out of the winter where a lot of the fish have leaned off. Their metabolism was slower, so they weren't feeding as heavy. And now they're starting to feed back up. So, really anything that looks like food should be food for a speckled trout right now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I find all that stuff very interesting because I have not been inshore fishing my whole life. So try and figure out the patterns and why they're doing what, where. Super interesting to me that you guys nerd out on that kind of stuff. And I love hearing it for sure. It's a great question.
Yeah, it was a good question, and I hope I shed a little bit of light on it. So I would say water temperature is a huge effect on the behavior of speckled trout and other inshore species, but speckled trout definitely see a lot of behavior changes with water temperature.
For sure. They seem to be a little more diva-ish than those redfish too, don't they?
Yeah. Diva is quite right. Yeah,
that's man. Right. Well, Chris is going to get a prize pack from the Slick Lure. Chris, make sure you email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to redeem your Slick Lures. Y'all send us the Hey Cap questions at alabama@bestfishingreport.com, or make sure you're following our Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report Facebook page, which is how Chris submitted that question. I try and make a post pretty much every time I think about it, which isn't that often all the time, but I try to do my best. We get those slick lures out.
There were some great questions in there. It was hard to whittle it down to Chris's question, but I like Chris's question. I felt like it was relevant this time of the year. I want to say something about the slick lure is I went out this past Monday as I was talking about, and I literally strapped on one slick lure. I threw the new Cold Night color.
I like that one.
That one that's cool beans body with the chartreuse tail, and whacked a couple fish with that one. And anyway, that was a good color. So if y'all are just looking for a new color to buy from Joey, then go with the Cold Night. She's been working in the Mobile Bay, so go stock up.
Yeah. What is it? Pureflats.com? Is that what Captain Joey's website is?
Yep, and I talked to Joey yesterday, and he is working his tail off to get lures shipped out fast enough. It's
good.
Just crazy how much this thing is taking off. He's selling them all up the Atlantic coast now to these guys in the Carolinas, and he said it's crazy how fast these things are. He's having to make them and send them out.
Yep, I'm trying to get my buddies in Virginia hooked on them. I guarantee you, Kobe would eat a slick lure.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
All right, man. That's a great report. We appreciate that, Captain Patric. Let's head on down, man. I'm curious to see what Scott Kennedy's been up to.
let's go down to the south end of the bay and hear our buddy Kayak and Kennedy. I was just noticing on the Auburn University CPR tournament that's being hosted on Fishing Chaos that Scott has just bumped me off the redfish top spot.
All right.
So no, I've got thick skin, Scott, but I hate seeing my name slide off the leaderboard. So what you been up to, man?
I tell you, we've done a little bit of everything. Past few days I've been doing the inshore fishing. Got to put up some submissions for that. Got to make sure I get my name up there at least for a day or two.
We've got the Auburn University tournament, the bass team put up on Fishing Chaos. Tell us a little bit about the quarantine kayaking tournament you got going on.
Oh, yeah. That Fishing Chaos, they got a little bit of everything. They do the charter booking, of course, and then started rolling out some online tournaments. So we're putting together one. My business, Whistling Waters, we're doing the Quarantine Kayak Classic, and it's just kind of a free tournament, with all this mess going on, everybody out of work, not able to do much. Fishing, of course, we can still do. So we've got people getting out, and it's a free catch photo release kayak tournament, which, you just catch your fish and then you put it down on a measuring board, whether it be, like a hog trough or just some kind of measuring stick. It's based off of inches rather than weight. And, that gives you the option to release these fish. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's going to be nationwide, no boundaries. We've got freshwater and saltwater categories. So we got, a category for lunker redfish, lunker speckled trout, lunker flounder. We've got an inshore slam category. We've got a bass category, a catfish category, and a carp category for the inshore stuff. For the freshwater stuff. So a little bit of everything for everyone.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So I just want to back up just a little bit. I actually just recently downloaded the Fishing Chaos app. So now it's an app on your smartphone, and I was messing around with it a little bit this weekend. I think I downloaded it on Saturday or Sunday. I mean, they have some really cool stuff, man. They have the catch log where you can, I'm new to it. It says, "Where all the fish at, Bubba?" is what it says on mine because I haven't logged anything yet. So, Patric, you're probably more familiar with that than I am. Yeah. So, obviously, there's all these tournaments listed too.
I'm going to cut you off, Butch. So, the cool thing about these tournaments that are going on, there's several of them going on right now, and many of them are actually free. So when you make your catch, or when you catch your fish and you log it into the tournament, it's also logging into your catch log.
Okay, cool.
So you're getting a 2-for-1 deal as far as information that's beneficial to you at a later date. Cooper's doing the Stay Strong Kids tournament.
I saw where Cooper's mopping up. I was looking at him yesterday. He is mopping up. I did see that.
That dude is putting all kind of fish up there, but at the same time, he's developing a catch log for all these fish that he's catching.
That's cool, man.
I mean, we're starting him right now at 7 years old. If we got Fishing Chaos for the next 30 years, the kid's going to have oodles and equals of data about the fish he's been catching. So it's going to be fun to watch it over the years.
So anyway, sorry to interrupt your report there, Scott. But so the Quarantine Kayak Class is going on right now, right? You can go in, sign up, and start logging your catches, right?
Well, registration is open right now. Tournament kicks off Friday, 17th to the 17th of next month. So you've got plenty of time to catch fish and put them up there.
Awesome, man. Well, what you been up to fishing-wise?
Well, of course, I listened to last week's podcast, and, I heard old Chris Becce on there talking about the pompano fishing. And, of course, I love to do me some pompano fishing, but with the beaches shut down, I've had to get a little creative with it. So I have been taking my kayak out. I got out a couple of days last week, and, man, I tell you, I had one day in particular that was by far the best day of pompano fishing I've ever had. I caught probably within about 4 or 5 hours. I think I landed near 40 pompano. So, I got my 3 to take home and eat, and then got to release a bunch and feel the fight. And kind of like y'all talked about last week, that fighting a pompano on light tackle, the same stuff you would use for trout and redfish, it'll ruin a lot of fishing for you. It's amazing.
So you were kind of doing the same thing that Chris was talking about? Just kind of, were you throwing the jigs or anything different?
Yeah, so I was throwing some pompano jigs, some pink and white, some orange. I throw a little bit different jig than what I think Chris is throwing. It's kind of more of a diamond loony jig. It kind of looks like a small banana, but it's something about that flash and that crazy action. It gets those pompano hungry.
Is that a silver bait? Got any hot colors on it? What you got? What are you doing there?
My favorite color is, of course, pink. That was probably the most productive for me, but it was, we had a lot of luck with orange too. But, that pink and white seems to be the ticket. That was what got it for me. I tell you, one thing I did too is I put a little teaser on there, it was basically, just a small J hook with a little bit of bucktail on it. And it seemed like most of the fish I caught was on that bucktail teaser. I don't know if it was just
a little more action, maybe
the hook. Yeah, but it just maybe the little smaller profile, having the jig to weigh it down and make the commotion in the sand, and then having that teaser just a little bit above the jig. I don't know, it seemed like they were keying in on that teaser a little bit more. And that was a big, big help. Like I said, we were still catching them just on the regular, traditional pompano jigs. But that teaser one, we got a few more strikes, and it seemed to increase the hookup ratio a little bit more too.
That's awesome, man. We were talking about ling a little bit earlier with Angelo. Have you heard anything on the ling front over there?
I tell you, the ling fishing is kind of an art that I do not have. I've stumbled into a few of them later in the summer. I've gotten lucky with some. But I tell you, doing that ling fishing from the kayak is pretty tough. Just, even when I'm standing up on top of my cooler, I'm only, 6 feet above the water line. So it can be a little tough to see them, but I heard a lot of guys are down here catching them. It seemed like, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I saw a few caught off the pier.
Yeah.
So they're definitely around. They are eluding me.
Well, Scott, I want to ask a little bit more about this pompano fishing from the kayak. Are you just getting out, getting on top of the sandbar and fan casting from the beach to the trough to the bar off out into the, on the south side of the bar? Give me a little bit of a rundown of what pompano kayaking setup looked like for you.
Yeah, what I want to start out with saying is, getting out there is very, very dangerous in the kayak, going through these passes and stuff with the heavy boat traffic and, the strong currents. I would advise, if you're fresh to kayaking, it's probably not the best thing to try out. But if you are confident in your kayak, if you're wearing your life jacket, you can get outside these passes. And, just like you said, I'm getting on the south side of the sandbar. I'm looking for these. I took a good tip from Chris's report last week. I just find these cuts inside the bars, any kind of point where the bar, makes a big curve, just any kind of irregularity in that sandbar. And yeah, it's just a lot of fan casting, usually a lot of blind casting before you find one. But once we found them, we hammered down on them. And I assume we found, just a big school moving through, and we were able to start casting once we found one. And we'd pick up 4 or 5 real quick, and then things would get a little bit slow, so we'd have to start searching again. And then once we'd find another one, we'd be able to pick up a few more. Kind of the main thing I focusing on was those cuts through the bars, anywhere you can find some good current spitting out. And it seems like that's washing. I think kind of my theory is, when you get that current running through the bars, stirs up the sand a lot, pushes a lot of these creatures that live in the sand, like the sand fleas and the
pushing all that through the cut, and they're just sitting there smashing that stuff.
Exactly. And they're just kind of waiting there, letting it bring it to them. And it's a lot of fun, catching them from the kayak. They're small fish, but the power they have had me cutting around in circles, and it was fun to catch them.
Backing down on them, gain some ground.
Backing down, yeah.
Backing down on them. Well, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Anything else? We were talking to Captain Patric earlier. He gave us the inshore report. He's been seeing kind of the voodoo shrimp under the popping cork kind of deal being primary, and some top water. I know you chase redfish and speckled trout a lot. You've been doing any of that, and what are you finding to be successful?
Oh, yeah. Once the winds picked up and we weren't able to get back out into the Gulf after the pompano, I moved inshore, and that's what I've been doing the past few days. And it's just like you said, top water, of course, is my favorite thing to throw. A lot of days I'll run myself ragged to get that 1 or 2 top water bites. But here lately, if you get out right, sunrise, first light, there has been some great redfish action on top water. And, it's once the sun's moved up a little bit, I've switched over to mirrodines and subsurface jerkbait. I love a popping cork. It's very productive, but a lot of times I can't get myself to throw one. I like to fish fast. I like to throw baits that I can work real quick and feel that fish just absolutely slam it. once the sun's come up, and like I've mentioned before, if I start getting some short strikes and they're not really committing to it, I've switched off the top water to, like 17 MR Miridines or some Yozuri pencil minnows, that kind of stuff. Yeah, man, the redfish has been incredible. And we're starting to pick up some decent trout too, starting to see some bigger trout. A couple weeks prior, we were catching a lot of trout, but they were all kind of, 13 to 15 inches. But it seems like this week, the big ones are starting to bulk up and they're starting to get a little bit hungry. And me and my wife were actually out a few days ago, and she wound up getting her biggest speckled trout, and she caught that on the Miridine. So that was
nice.
That was real cool to see.
That's awesome.
She just caught it too early to enter it into your tournament, though.
That's right.
Yep. She had to, we got to release that one. We got some good pictures, but she wasn't able to enter that one quite yet. She's going to have to hopefully go back and find it later in the week.
Man, that's awesome, though. I mean, as long as she's getting out there and figuring out the cadence that a big fish wants to eat,
yep.
That to me is like the hardest part in catching a big fish on artificial, is getting over the learning curve of figuring out what that cadence is. Sitting there, like, you'll catch smaller fish, and then all of a sudden something's going to click, and you catch a bigger fish, and you go,
oh.
Yeah. You say, oh, that was what you wanted, and now all of a sudden you can now catch big trout, and it's an amazing thing. So congratulations to her catching her biggest fish.
For sure. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. Yeah, there's something to be said about feeling those big trout hit an artificial bait. It is something special.
Yep.
You got that right.
Definitely worth it. You say you run around, sometimes you run around just for those one or two topwater bites, but it's worth it for sure. All right, buddy. We're going to get that kayak tip from you this week. And this week's kayak tip is brought to us by Alabama Fishing Rodeo. You don't have to spend tons of money to compete in a fishing tournament. The Alabama Fishing Rodeo is an inexpensive way to get out fishing with the family and friends. You can fish from a boat, a kayak, the pier, or the beach. All ages can compete in the tournament, and there are tons of great prizes. This year's rodeo will be June 12th through June 14th, and it's easy to register. Just go to fishflorabama.com for tickets and more details. Thanks for a tip this week, bud.
Well, my tip this week, being in a kayak, we're not able to cover a lot of water. Things are kind of slow paced. So any kind of advantage you can find to help you find the fish a little bit quicker is definitely big. And one thing I've noticed this week, I've been seeing a lot of seagulls, not even necessarily seagulls diving and feeding, but just seagulls hanging out in areas, whether they're sitting in the trees, sitting on the bank. And it took me a day or two to notice this, but if you see a bunch of, shorebirds, seagulls, anything kind of hanging in the area, spend a little bit more time in that area. I think what's happening is maybe they were feeding earlier, or they're just waiting for these bait fish to get pushed up by the bigger fish. But I've noticed just about everywhere I've caught fish this week, there's been seagulls hanging around. And a couple of times I saw them diving and, doing their thing. But a lot of times they were just kind of hanging out, waiting. I think if you're out on the water looking around and you see some seagulls or, shorebirds hanging around, spend a little more time casting there, and it'll probably help you out.
Makes great sense. They were there for a reason. Like I say, they were either just feeding or they were just feeding, but they're waiting for them to pop back up so they can start feeding again.
Exactly.
That's a great tip, Scott.
Patrick was talking about seagulls earlier.
Yeah, and I will say this: you're talking about the shorebirds, even the herring and the cranes and stuff that feed on the shore. Man, those guys are a giveaway too. What they're telling you is that there's bait present, and more than likely there's some sort of predator fish that's periodically feeding on that bait right there on the shoreline to give that bird access to fleeing bait fish. Good tip, Scott.
Great tip.
I appreciate you bringing that to everybody's attention.
Absolutely. Man, if people want to book a trip with you, Scott, what's the best way to get in touch with you, buddy?
So you can either shoot me a text or call me at 251-408-2604. Or, of course, like we were saying earlier, you can check me out on fishingchaos.com, or you can look at the Fishing Chaos app. And I've got all my available dates, rates, thing you need to know is on that Fishing Chaos app.
That's cool. And I enjoy all your pictures and Whistling Waters on Instagram and Facebook as well, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, guys.
All right, dude. We appreciate you being on, man. We'll talk to you soon, Scott. Keep whacking them, buddy.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
All right, bud. Bye.
That's a great report, buddy. That's another good Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. I appreciate you co-hosting with me today.
Man, as always, I thoroughly enjoy talking fishing, drinking a beer at distance from you.
That's right. Social distancing.
Yeah. Man, we've had some good fishing conversation today, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Yeah, I'm ready for this wind to lay down a little bit so I can get out myself. Offshore, I was looking at, I mean, it's going to be 4 or 5 foot until next Sunday or Monday. It's going to be rough for a little while. So hopefully some of our guys can get out. I know a lot of them are just sitting on go, ready to roll since the tuna fishing and the marlin fishing and everything's been so good. So we'll see. Hopefully that'll lay down pretty quickly.
Hopefully. If not, you'll find me on the leeward shoreline somewhere.
That's right. Maybe I can get in with you one day.
All right, let's do it.
All right, bud. You know, we got to do What Did You Learn? This week, What Did You Learn is brought to us by Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. Make the choice that professional captains all over the Gulf make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. Well, what'd you learn today, man?
Man, I think the bird conversation that, you know, I was talking about how I leverage the birds to help put me on some more trout in the Mississippi Sound, and Scott bringing it up again. It's not necessarily something I learned, but it's definitely something to kind of talk more about. I mean, for instance, you know, I was mentioning that I was fishing around the piers and stuff on the Eastern Shore this week, and had a guy come out off his property and walk out on the pier and was like, "Hey, what y'all doing?" And we were fishing in pretty close to shore as opposed to fishing out at the ends of the piers. And he was like, "Why y'all fishing in here?" And we're like, "Well, I mean, that's, you know, there were some pelicans diving in here." He's like, "Yeah, them pelicans been diving there on the shoreline all week. I figured and about that time I stick a redfish." And he's like, "Well, I guess them redfish, or I guess them pelicans were telling me something." So, I mean,
exactly.
If you you know, we talk about this all the time about paying attention.
Yeah, so I was about to say, you and I were just saying, look around, pay attention.
But literally, especially somebody that's throwing a popping cork, you can throw a popping cork and kind of look around and observe your surroundings, because you pop it. And if the fish takes it down and you look back, the cork's gone, don't wonder where your cork is. Just reel up and set the hook.
That's right.
So that's,
right.
I mean, that's definitely, that was definitely a good theme for us today. So what about you? What was stuck out in your mind today?
Man, kind of the same thing. And like you were just talking about, just pay attention. Little things like that can make a difference in having a great day or a bad day. If you're running around, I mean, and Scott's, you know, kayaking down the beach or whatever he's doing, there's a bunch of birds sitting on top of the water or sitting on the beach. They're there for a reason. Think about that for a second. Just pay attention, assess your surroundings. Captain Richard's always harping that on here, and just to me as well in general whenever we're fishing. You know, just be looking. Always be looking. Always be on the look for something. An anomaly in the water over here. A bird diving over there. Why is that ripple over there? You know, why? Everything. Just look.
Yep.
Great show, man.
I enjoyed it, buddy.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the show each week, head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show. You guys be sure to get those Hey Cap questions in. Head over to our Facebook page, Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, and submit those questions. What you think, Captain Patrick?
Man, not only that on the Facebook page, but there's like a lot of good, like, just information, a lot of stuff that people are talking about. And I mean, there's always something going on that Facebook page. So if you're not following that page and not checking it out, you're kind of missing out, because there's some good information being shared there.
Well, I try and share whatever's going on with you guys. You know, you with Ugly Fishing, I try and share cold-blooded stuff. And everybody that's involved is kind of just a big community. So kind of figure out whatever everybody's doing, you know? Man,
it's definitely the sweet spot for fishing information, I'd say, besides the podcast.
Right, for sure, man. Well, if people you got any opening dates coming up, people want to book a trip with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
really, the bookings slowed down a good bit with everything going on, and next week's wide open, really. So, I mean, if somebody's local, wanting to itching, ready to go fishing, just give me a shout, 251-747-1554. If you're looking further in advance, I've actually had some people reach out and they're wanting to book some stuff further into the summer. They're going to go ahead and just committing to a date.
Knocking it out a little bit further.
They're just getting them. They're just going ahead and booking them. So you can go to uglyfishing.com and click the book now button. It's going to take you to my Fishing Chaos page, and you can see my available dates there. And then always, I mean, I'm doing a text message community too. So, I mean, if you're interested in just getting a little bit of extra detail, a little bit of something else going on, just send me a text at 251-747-1554. And I'll add you to that text message group. So
awesome, man. Yeah, you can never have enough fishing information. We found that very applicable here.
Yes, it's very it's very helpful, and it's very, like, I don't know, serving to the soul. You know, it just kind of calms you down. Everything else kind of goes away for a little bit when you start thinking about fishing and thinking about what's out there to be caught. So
for sure,
Butch, I really enjoyed doing the show with you this week, man.
Heck yeah, buddy. I'm glad you co-host with me, and let's get on the water soon, buddy.
Yes, sir.
All right, Captain Patrick, we'll talk to you soon, bud. Keep whacking them. You guys have a great week. We'll talk to you next week.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Fishbites. Fishbites stay on the hook longer than any natural bait. Check them out at fishbites.com. And also brought to you by Daycool Heating and Air, your home performance specialist. Contact them at 251-260-3858 or check them out online at www.daycoolair.com. License number AL07028.
Also brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al.
Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org. Also brought to you by
MDH Foundation Repair. If your home is experiencing foundation problems, MDH Foundation Repair has the best solutions to fix it right and fix it now and protect your most important asset, your home. Check them out at mdhfoundationrepair.com.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo DePaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo DePaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
Also brought to you by
Advanced Transmission in Spanish Fort. Give the professionals a call who have been trusted on the Gulf Coast for over 25 years at 251-626-6061 or check them out online at www.advanced-transmission.com.